Every restaurant's a little bit different.
Sure.
I drove into town today. I saw like 5 barbecue restaurants.
Welcome to Statesboro. Welcome to Statesboro. That's what we do in Statesboro. We open barbecue restaurants.
And I'm sure they all have barbecue, but they all
Sure.
have their own version of the barbecue, right?
That's right.
So Axe Throwing is going to be the same way.
What's up, everybody? My name is Adam, and I'm the host of the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, the show that is dedicated on bringing on passionate people, learning about their stories, and delivering value to entrepreneurs. So if that's what you're interested in, go ahead and follow, like, and subscribe. You know what I'm saying?
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, where you get to know a little bit more about people, passions, and all things business. Today, I'm sitting across the way from the CEO of the Matted Ox Axe Throwing Company.
Yes.
And his name, he's challenged me to say this, is Jason Kuykendall. Kuykendall?
So we're close. Not really. So it's Dutch.
Okay.
And the UY makes an sound.
Uh-huh.
So it's pronounced Kuykendall.
Kuykendall.
If you look at it and say it, it gets complicated. If you just say Kuykendall, it's simple.
Oh, so you are, your ethnicity or your family is from the motherland.
Well, at least that's what the name is based upon.
Okay.
I don't know if you've done one of those DNA genetic test
Okay.
things. They're pretty cool. I thought there's no Dutch blood in me whatsoever.
Really?
So I don't know where the name came from.
Well,
I mean, I really don't. I have no idea. But I think it's awesome.
That's very
it's a
cool.
story in itself, right?
That's very cool. That's very cool. Well, what we do know is that you are an entrepreneur. Yep. You are moving towards something that's very different in the space that has been around for maybe the past 5 years or so. If you want to tell me a little bit about what it is that your company does.
So we are an axe throwing venue and mobile. You absolutely walk in the place, you sign a waiver saying you're good to go, and we teach you how to throw axes from about 12 feet away and get them to stick in the wall.
I mean, that.
It's super simple. It's been around forever, but like you said, in the last 5 years has grown tremendously from a few venues to all over the stinking country and all over the world at this point.
And how did you initially get into that?
So I'm going to say I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've always wanted to do it. I grew up, my dad had what I called get-rich schemes. I didn't think they were entrepreneurial. I didn't look at it that way.
Sure.
But he was always trying to look for something so he wasn't stuck on what someone else wanted to tell him to do. He got to do what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it. So I thought that was cool. So I always wanted to do things like that. And
did he ever bring you in along on kind of like those adventures, if you like to call them that?
We were always free labor.
Yeah,
absolutely. We were always. I grew up as free labor. Myself and my siblings were always free labor, and some of it was fun, and some of it wasn't fun. But we were always free labor.
Gotcha.
So I was in and around it. You know, he ended up going to work for somebody else and having a lot of control. But there was always something else. There's always something on the side. And I've been looking for that. And my wife and I started if you don't mind, I'll go back history-wise. How we got to Axe Throwing is we started a vending business. So we bought a business opportunity from a company and started a vending business in Brunswick 2018.
Okay.
Liked it, enjoyed it. The whole family's involved. Sometimes the kids like working in it. Sometimes they didn't. The biggest difference between what my experiences and what their experiences were, they got paid for their work.
Okay.
I never got paid as a kid, right? But the kids get paid.
I'm a little bit familiar with this type of strategy.
Yeah, it works out well for some people, just not everybody. So we involved the kids. Sometimes they liked it. Sometimes they didn't. We're very happy with the business. Had a large vending company come to us that we had started a relationship with and asked about us selling that business. So kind of thought about it, contemplated a little bit. We had ventured off into the distribution space as well.
Yeah.
So I was now not only had vending machines at a bunch of different locations in and around Brunswick, but then I also was selling product to different people, to retailers, convenience stores, mom and pop even to my vending competitor at the time. So I was selling other stuff, and we decided, hey, that's a perfect opportunity. He wants to buy. We're willing to sell.
So did you exit out of the that strategy completely? Like, do you have control of, like, you know, where the product goes? You sold it all?
I sold all the vending side of it.
Gotcha.
So I still do distribution.
Okay.
So I kept that part of the business. I still run routes. My wife ran a route this morning about dropping off product out on St. Simon's Island to a couple of our accounts out there. So we still run that part of the business, but I sold the vending side of it.
And why did you decide to do that? Was it just because the vending is very intensive, right, in terms of like labor that's required?
Yeah, it's intensive, but it's also not, right? So it's intensive when you have to do it. The control that you have in vending is typically you have some flexibility on when that machine gets filled. So I may need to fill 6 machines today, but I don't have to fill all of them right now. I may be able to fill some of them this morning. I may be able to fill some of them tonight. So there was some flexibility that worked out really well. And for kids in high school, my oldest 2 at the time were in high school, it was great for labor for them because they went to school during the day, dual enrollment. They'd have a couple hours off. They'd go fill a couple machines. I could fill some after work. My wife could fill some after work. So it was kind of nice on that flexibility side. When you needed to do it, you needed to do it.
Sure.
Now, of course, it's equipment, and equipment breaks.
Sure.
Never breaks when it's supposed to.
Gotcha.
Always breaks when it's poor time. You're just left town for a vacation.
Yeah.
You're tied up for the next 2 days on some type of conference or whatever. So that was the downside of it. But it was really, anytime you get into business, you should be thinking about what your exit strategy is. And it doesn't have to be a short term. It can be a long term. What we thought our exit strategy was going to be was at some point passing it on to someone else in the family.
Yeah.
So one of the kids wanting to take it on. My wife and I have 4 children, and so we have 2 that are older and 2 that are younger, and so we thought there might be an opportunity to pass that on to one of them. And the oldest 2, the oldest now is at Georgia. The second oldest, she's getting ready to come to Southern here in the fall. And so they were not really in that world of wanting to do that. The younger 2 probably aren't at the stage of ready to take over a business. And timing. I mean, you can't pick when somebody's going to come and offer you money for your business.
Sure.
And especially when it's more money than you started with.
Got you.
So you say, okay, well, maybe it's time.
So how come you decided to keep kind of like the distribution side then?
Opportunity for growth. It was newer. We started the vending a couple of years into the vending. Then we started distribution and came across that under happenstance, kind of lucked into that. But we saw more opportunity, more growth opportunity for that. A couple of the brands that we were representing at the time, they were growing, and they still are, one of them specifically. So that helped us say, okay, well, we're going to keep doing these things. We'll get rid of this. And then to get to the axe throwing piece, a friend of a friend had a venue in Arkansas, and the friend was through vending. So I knew this guy through vending. His friend was opening an axe throwing venue in Texarkana, Arkansas.
Okay.
Never walked a step foot into it, but he started telling me about it, saw the financial opportunity, started looking at the trend of, hey, axe throwing's growing. At the time, there was one in Pooler.
Yep.
There was. Yes.
Was that the one that...
No, in Pooler was Bear Axe.
Bear Axe, that's right.
Bear Axe in Pooler.
Yep.
Then you had some in Jacksonville.
Okay.
Nowhere else.
Okay.
At least within our vicinity. Statesboro still doesn't have one.
Sure.
Savannah obviously had the one, and Blade and Bull.
Sure.
Blade and Bull was in Savannah. So you had Blade and Bull, and you had Bear Axe in Savannah. And then nothing in Waycross, nothing in Jessup, nothing in Camden, nothing in Brunswick. You had to go to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So, hey, there's an open space. I built a target in my backyard, said, okay, what is this all about? We started throwing axes in the backyard, said, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then realized that, hey, we have the potential to not only make money. Obviously, you want to make money. I mean, the idea of having a side gig, being an entrepreneur, whatever it may be, is being able to provide.
Sure.
But for me, it's control.
Sure.
Good decisions, bad decision. It's my control. In the case of my wife and I mean, we definitely, I'm glad she's around because I would be going way farther right than I should.
Sure.
She brings me back to center, keeps me grounded, helps me minimize the risk that I take. But in the same thing, you control it. If you make a good decision, there's rewards that come with that good decision.
I call it living and dying by your own sword, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Basically, you are in control of like what happens, your destiny.
100%. And obviously the market has impact to that. But ultimately, it's the decisions that you make. If you decide to grow and you decide to grow too fast, well, there's a consequence to that. There's repercussion.
Absolutely.
You don't grow soon enough, well, there's a consequence to that. You miss out on the market. So anyway, we had nothing in the area. Brunswick is a neat little town, a little bit bigger than Statesboro. You have St. Simon's, you have Jekyll, so the Golden Isles, a lot of tourism, but you have a lot of people there that are just normal folks that have day jobs that are looking for things to do, and there wasn't enough to do in Brunswick. So we decided, hey, this is an opportunity to bring something new to Brunswick. Also, it allows us to kind of explore and maybe, have some more opportunity in the future. And lo and behold, Matadoc's Axe Throwing opened July 2nd of 2021. So we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary.
So 2021 is an interesting choice just because we are going that period of time was a very kind of like turbulent, if you would call it. So how do you make that call, right? Like, obviously to a certain extent, you've already kind of honed in on, okay, I think that there's an opportunity here. But there's risk,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
There's like, oh my goodness, like, did you purchase the property? Are you signing a lease? Like, what? Take me through that side of things.
So obviously COVID, right? COVID's going on. And I don't want to minimize it. Everybody, I think, is entitled to what they believe in. And I believe that with COVID too. But South Georgia looked at COVID completely different than some of the other places in the world.
Agreed.
And to a business person's benefit.
Sure.
Because so we were in the vending business when COVID hit. Vending in the state of Georgia was considered essential. And most of the locations that we had machines at were also considered essential. We didn't stop at all during COVID.
How were numbers during that time? For vending?
About the same and growing appropriately, right? So they didn't just jump crazy, but appropriate growth for a second year in business in comparison to a first year in business.
Sure.
So that kind of positively influenced us. But then from a business perspective on the axe throwing, South Georgia pretty much forgot about COVID when it came to a business. Every restaurant was open, back to normal standings. There were no limitations on how many people could be in a venue.
Sure.
So from that standpoint, there wasn't a ton of risk, in my opinion. Looking back, it probably was, maybe there was more risk than I wanted to acknowledge.
Sure.
We signed a 1-year lease to kind of minimize, hey, let's try a 1 year. Let's
1
make
year
sure.
is actually pretty difficult to sign. Typically, a landlord wants you to sign for a little bit longer, right?
And I think that's the other about being in a small town, right? So if we had been in a big city, if we'd have been in Atlanta, I think it would have been different. I would say even Savannah might be different. But you look at how many vacant retail properties there are right now, it probably wasn't a bad decision on the part of the landlord either.
Sure.
Because I don't know about Statesboro. I'm minimally aware of what goes on in Statesboro. We got here a little bit early to kind of cruise around, and I know we'll get to what we're doing here. But you look in Brunswick, and there's empty retail space all over the place.
Everywhere.
So I think from a landlord perspective, hey, I'll take a year.
Sure.
If I get a year out of them and they pay their rent on time for a year, that's probably not bad. But we tried to minimize, right? We tried to minimize how much money we spent to get going. We financed it all in ourselves, some from the proceeds of the sale of our vending business, which allowed us the opportunity to do that. Some of it just our own pooling of money and figuring out how to do it. We didn't take on any partners. It's just my wife and I. And you take enough risk and go, okay, well, let's see what the first year brings. And, we made it through the first year. I'm not going to say sales were absolutely amazing, but I would have never guessed that we would have done as well as we did in the first year.
So take me through that. You get to the point, you've kind of like built out everything. What I'm hearing is that, you always had that confidence that, hey, this is the right move, right?
Or I'm not very smart. and my wife may tell. I'm not sure which one she's going to say at the moment.
Okay.
I don't want to say that I had tons of confidence or that I'm all knowing or anything, because that's silly, right? No one has that stuff. But if you want control, the only way to do it is actually to take control of it.
Putting it on the line.
I do have faith in myself and my family, my wife and I, to make smart decisions and to do business the right way. I am very confident in that. Did I know that everything would work out after the first year? No, of course, no clue. Was I confident that I would work my ass to death until it worked out? Yes, I was very confident in that.
What's been the biggest challenge?
Advertising, really. I mean, it really is hard. So because Brunswick, I think, is not unique, but for this type of business.
Sure.
So you get some locals, date nights, that type of experience, companies and company events, which have been great for us. But we have a big tourism piece, and we talked about it a second ago. How do you get to a tourist? How do you market to somebody that may only come into town for a week? How do you tell them that we're there? Not to mention, we're in the Brunswick proper on the mainland side and not on the island.
Got you.
So a lot of people either go to Jekyll or go to St. Simon's and they stay there the whole time. It seems like a long 20 or 30 minute drive to come back into town. They've got all the restaurants, they've got the beach, they've got the stuff they need. Rent was way too expensive to be on the island.
Makes sense.
So we found, we had some limitations, or not limitations, but expectations. We wanted to be big enough space, somewhere between 2,500 and 4,000 square feet.
Okay.
That's what we wanted.
That's a big space.
It is a big space, and we knew, because we didn't want to limit ourselves, right? We wanted to be able to walk in. We serve beer. We have room for cornhole.
Awesome.
We have room for seating. We have lots of other things besides just the axe throwing. We now do live music. We bring in food trucks once or twice a month.
I have a food truck.
Outside. Oh, well then when are you going to come see us?
Yeah.
Oh, we need to talk about that.
We'll get that to that. Keep going.
So there were some things that we had. We wanted to be next to a restaurant.
Okay.
because we didn't want to serve our own food.
Understood.
Now, I would open up a food truck today if my wife would let me. But this is that nice balance between my wife and I. I want to risk everything. She wants to keep us smart and making sure that we're still making money and being profitable.
Sure.
So we didn't want a restaurant at the beginning.
Sure.
We wanted to focus on our venue and getting people into our venue.
So you have a full bar.
So we serve beer and malt beverages because of one state law and then the county. Every county gets to make some variants on those things.
Sure.
So we classify as a beer specialty shop, which means we're able to do malt beverages.
Okay.
So your White Claw, your Truly,
Sure.
your seltzer market, and then beer. And then because of the way Georgia classifies ciders, ciders are classified as a malt beverage, even though they're not, but that's how they're classified. So we're able to bring in ciders. So I'll argue the very best Georgia craft beer selection anywhere in the Golden Isles. Right now we probably have 26 different Georgia breweries that are represented in Maddox. Everything
awesome.
from a lager.
How many
to
taps? How many taps?
only
is that?
4. So mostly cans.
Okay.
Because that's what people put in there, and again cost, right? So
Sure.
my four tap keg or kegerator or whatever was what $3,500.
Sure.
I could get a 3-door
cans,
cooler for that same price and put in all kinds of variety.
That's
and
right.
so be able to do that. So we do cans and then some draft. I try to bring in. We always keep Silver Bluff. I don't know if you're familiar with Silver Bluff Brewery. So that's our local brewery.
Okay.
Great business partners. We work together on different things, but they're just really good people and they make dang good beer.
Yeah.
So I always keep one of theirs on draft, and then I'll have Mick Ultra because you got to have something for the people that like water, and then I'll bring in a couple others that are different, and then the cans are where my variety comes in.
For the axe throwing business, where's the money at, right? Because I've thought about this concept before. Because when it first come up, and I am very much in line with whatever shiny, I'm there. Let's go. Let's open a food truck. Why not? Let's do it. But with that business, I think one of the challenges is like, okay, well, you've got to get people in there, right? And then the people that go, what is the typical fee?
So our pricing structure, we do 75 minutes of throwing.
Okay.
So and on top of the 75 minutes, we do a safety and instruction prior to that 75 minutes starting. So we want to make sure that you enjoy that full 75-minute experience, and then we'll make sure that you know how to do it safely and can do it. So we don't let a group get going until they've safely stuck an axe, and then their 75 minutes starts. Sure. Sometimes that takes a while. Yeah. You'll get in a group of 5 or 6 people. One of them's just really, really struggling. We make sure that they're good to go, and then we get them throwing.
Yeah. So that's 2 hours.
2 hours. An hour and 15 minutes. But you're there for an hour and a half, hour and 45, depending on how big your group is.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's $29 plus tax for the 75 minutes of throwing. That is pretty standard. You'll see somewhere between $25 and $30 for 60 minutes of throwing in our area. So I said earlier that nobody else. You had Blade and Bull and you had Bear Axe. Since then, you now have an axe throwing venue in Jessup, 45 minutes west of us. Waycross has an axe throwing venue, hour and 15 minutes to the west of us. Camden County now has an axe throwing place, and then we're here. So we went from being the one within an hour to now there's 5 of us within that same hour.
And what does that do to you? Does that squeeze? Does that make it challenging?
So I think every venue, let's talk about a restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. Every restaurant's a little bit different.
Sure.
I drove into town today. I saw like 5 barbecue restaurants.
Welcome to Statesboro. Welcome to Statesboro. That's what we do in Statesboro. We open barbecue restaurants.
And I'm sure they all have barbecue, but they all have their own version of the barbecue, right?
That's right.
So axe throwing is going to be the same way. Everybody's going to have their own version. Now, I think that we stand out amongst others for 2 main reasons. Okay. Well, I'm going to say 3 main reasons. I'll do the cocky one first.
Okay.
We're good.
Yeah.
All right. We treat people right. You're going to have an experience that you're not going to have at one of these other places.
Customer service.
Our coaches are spot on.
Yeah.
We spend time. We make sure that you're successful in throwing, not just throwing. Throwing it and watching it bounce off the wood is not a lot of fun. Throwing it and watch it stick, even if it's not a bullseye, it starts to get fun.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to get lucky and throw a bullseye.
Yeah.
So that's the experience that you want. But if they're not sticking it on the wood, They're
not.
never going to bullseye.
Okay.
So we spend time there. That means a lot to us. We want people to come in and enjoy themselves on the throwing side. If I can entertain you otherwise by making bad jokes or having some type of live act there or a food truck out front or really, really good beer, that's great. But I want you to have fun throwing axes as well. So that's first. Second is that we use a thing called an end grain target. So most axe throwing is a 2x10 board, 4 2x10 boards, where the grains run up and down.
Yeah.
Right, that's the norm. You go to the World Axe Throwing League, you go to the International Axe Throwing Federation, that is the norm. Nothing wrong with it, that's just what the norm is. However, from an entertainment standpoint, end grain, and you think about the end of a 6x6 post.
Okay.
So kind of hard to visualize sometimes, but if you think about, you remember the old brooms that were like the wooden, wood, I say wood, straw, almost straw-like, and you could squeeze them together?
Sure.
So an axe goes into that at any angle.
Yeah.
When you have grains that run just up and down, you're limited on how it sticks unless you throw it really hard, and then now it's breaking grains.
Got you.
In grains, it doesn't matter how the axe goes in, it's going to stick.
That's fun.
So now you're getting more sticks. It's easier to stick it. So even if you're a little off and the axe goes in a little crooked, you still can get a stick.
Does that make your does that drive the cost of your production up?
Not right now.
Okay.
Because end grain lasts longer. So I'll my target system. So I bought. Well, I'll get to the third thing in just a second. I'm probably replacing wood every other month. So I'll build a target, has 49 pieces of post. It's a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4, so a 6-inch post that's been trimmed down to be uniform. 49 of them being pressed together, 7 on each side, or 7 across, 7 down, and then it's being pressed in from 3 sides, so it stays in place. I'll have to build that target. It takes me an hour or two to build the target. I'll break it down every other month, every third month, replace a few of the blocks, put it back together, it's back in service.
That's right.
A standard 2x10 is going to get, of good throwers, going to get an hour of usage. I get 2, maybe 3 months of usage out of that same target.
Got you. So it just lasts a lot
So it lasts longer. I'll go through, I still have some wood from when we opened a year ago.
Wow.
That still is making its rounds. Because I'm able to move it around, right? So let's say I have 8 to 10 broken pieces. I take those 8 to 10, throw them away, bring in 8 to 10 new ones. Well, I had 49. So I'm only, 20%, 10% somewhere of each of the targets is breaking down and actually going away. So that's helpful. Wood prices, went insane. That's the other thing. Sure. Of course, here we are building a business that requires a lot of wood, and wood's going like straight up. So fortunately, we limited our wood except for just the targets.
Sure.
So I don't use wood other places. I've used other things to separate our lanes to keep your group segregated from the rest. So that's one thing that separates us. No one else in our area is doing end grain targets.
Got you.
Second thing that we do is we do projection targets. So I bought a system from a company in Texas where you project the target onto the wood. So instead of you putting on a stencil and marking the wood, now I project something onto the wood. I can change the games. So we have 6 or 7 different games that you can play. Visually, you're playing different games. You can go to a normal axe throwing place and you can play all kinds of games, or you can throw at the same target, but you have to pretend in your head.
Sure.
I put tic-tac-toe on the board.
Love that.
And you can play tic-tac-toe.
Cool.
You can throw at zombies. You can throw at ducks. You can play a regular target. You want to do, there's other things that you can do. And it's really limited by whatever the company produces. And the company has, I'll say, 10 games out there, and you get so many with your standard, and then you can buy extra games. It's kind of up to you.
How did you find them?
My wife. So this is where my wife comes into play. I wanted standard 2x10. I wanted to go the normal route. I'm a super, super competitive person. I don't care what it is. We're eating, I'm going to be faster than you. We're drinking, I'm going to drink faster than you. Oh, we want to go to the car.
Makes it fun.
Everything's a competition. And my wife grew up the same way. She's super, super competitive.
Yeah.
And way smarter than me. So this is where we balance out. She said, hey, look at this. And because we were both looking. Hey, when we decided we wanted to do this, or at least was a consideration, what do you use? Use the Google machine and see what you can find. And she found this, and I looked at it and said, oh, that's kind of cool. No, thanks. I want to do this. I want to do this 2x10. We're going to do World Axe Throwing League or International Axe Throwing Federation. We're going to have competitions. This place is going to be awesome.
Sure.
And she kept pushing. Hey, you should look at this. You should look at this. And then she reached out to the guy that owns the company. And just through email traffic, he responds right away. Customer service.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'll talk to him.
Sure.
Got him on the phone. Dang, some salespeople are better than others, right?
Sure.
But he was just talking. Hey, he's like, you don't have to do what I'm telling you to do. He said, this is what we do. He owns 3 venues, or at the time owned 3 venues. This is what I do in my venues. It works for us. Watch this YouTube video, see what you think. And after a couple conversations, it was obviously the right choice.
Yeah.
Now, building the targets, it takes more time, a couple hours, where you can replace 2x10s and nothing. But again, I don't have to do it very often.
That's right.
I will say most people walking into an axe throwing venue have never thrown an axe before.
Yeah.
If you've never done it before, don't we want to make it easier for you? Don't we want to make it where you get more chances for success?
Sure.
And also so you don't get bored, because not everybody's as competitive as me, throwing it one little circle right in the middle, calling it a bullseye, going, how many bullseyes can I get in a row?
Yeah.
That's fun for me.
Yeah.
But what if you've never thrown an axe before? What if you're a 10-year-old and you don't play sports, but your parents brought you to an axe throwing venue? Well, now you're playing tic-tac-toe.
Sure.
Now you're throwing it at a zombie.
Sure.
That's fun. It's
That makes it
entertainment.
fun. Yeah.
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
So can we do competitions? Yes. We've hosted a league. We're going to be doing some more of that. However, it's entertainment for the normal person that walks in the door.
Yeah.
And if you're coming there to be entertained for an hour and 15 minutes, you can still be competitive with, there's a target. The difference in my standard target and the one that you get in another venue is my bullseye moves around. So every throw, the bullseye is going to move to a different place.
How does it stop once you hit it?
So you'll after you throw,
It-
after everybody throws, then the next, it goes to a frame. If you look at bowling, right, 10 frames,
Gotcha.
the next frame it's in a different
changing.
spot.
Got it.
Yeah.
Understood.
So I'm hoping you're going to get to see it here in just a little bit when you
Yeah.
come to Burrowfest.
Yes. So you are at Burrowfest right now.
So I'm at Burrowfest.
Okay.
So fast forward, we're in the business. Things are going good. We're having to tell people no when it comes to mobile. People are asking, hey, do you have a mobile? Mobile's been around probably more common than, or for a while was more common than the brick and mortar.
Really?
Yeah, because it was,
Cost.
you could take it everywhere. It's
Yeah.
it's less expensive, right? You can spend a few $1,000s, build a 2x10 frame target, put it together, put it in the back of a trailer, call it good.
Yeah.
So there was a mobile unit in town when we started the business. When we started the brick and mortar, there was a mobile in town. We didn't view them as competition because they come to you, we're here, you come to us. We are the
It's a
entertainment.
different vibe.
It's
Yeah.
a different vibe, right? So a little bit after we opened, they closed down.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was us. I think
Sure.
it was just they wanted to go a different path. They were, I'm going to say, serial entrepreneurs as well. They had other businesses, and they just went a different direction. Now, I wish I would have known they were getting out of the business, because I would have bought their trailer
Sure.
to get us into it faster and cheaper.
Sure.
But after telling people no, multiple events, we said, hey, we need to do a mobile unit. And I go back to the guy that I bought my target systems from, and he has a friend that can help build, that is building a professional-looking mobile version using that same projection target
Sure.
in a semi-enclosed trailer. And we had to wait a while to get it have it completed. But now I could start telling people, yes, we can do mobile.
Who is this guy? So you keep mentioning him.
So
Like,
he's an entrepreneur. He's like you and I, right? He's a computer guy by trade.
Yeah.
He's a software engineer by trade, and then had paintball and what was he doing? Paintball and laser tag or something.
Sure.
And then decided, hey, this axe throwing looks good. It's the same type of setup. I can do this too, and started building axe throwing venues in Texas. His name's Larry, but he's like you and I.
That's super cool.
He's just a normal dude.
I love the technology touch in it.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen that before. I've been to axe throwing locations before, but having the targets where they change, I think that's ingenious.
It
And so
changes it.
Does he packages that to sell to other companies as well?
So it's not a franchise. You have limitations just like anything. If you buy technology from certain people, there's whether there's an NDA or there's restrictions, limited of use. Just like every time you buy new software, you got to sign that little license saying you're only going to use it in this way. And if you're going to use it to sell, to make products for somebody else, then you got to sign a different license.
Sure.
It's the same type of thing.
Is he in this realm, in this business, is he the one that's kind of like pushing the envelope?
I think
the
so
most?
from that standpoint. He pushes the in-grain target and he pushes the projection system. So he does both of those.
Sure.
But if you get on any forum, any group, whether it's Facebook or whatever else, you're going to find people say, oh, no, don't do that. You got to do the traditional World Axe Throwing League. You got to do the traditional 2x10s. And from a competition standpoint, most of those are still stuck in the normal 2x10. In that setup and not the projection. Now, the International Axe Throwing Federation, which is a Canada-based organization, but they've obviously gone worldwide, they will allow a projection target. They will allow in-grain targets in their competition. The World Axe Throwing League will not allow that, but International Axe Throwing Federation will allow that. So you can throw their formal competitive version on the IATF, International Axe Throwing Federation, their target, everything, you can do that on projection and ingrain.
How much of the business is, people that are doing it for sport versus people doing it for fun?
That's a good question. I mean, so you look at the venues around us, the one in Camden County, which we've become really, really good friends with. We go down there when they run some of their competitions, so that one, it's the relationship side of it, but it's the second. If I want to compete in the World Axe Throwing League, well, they're the World Axe Throwing League venue. They're in our area, so we go down there and we compete in their stuff. So they're the one. If you want to do competition in our area, that's where you go to. And we send business to each other all the time.
That's great.
It's like a restaurant, right? You go to a good restaurant,
yep,
and somebody's looking for other good restaurants. What do you do? If you're good, if you're confident in what you do,
you send them,
hey, go to try this barbecue place. They're really, really good. Or
That's
go try this Indian food or whatever it may be. It's the same thing with us. I'm confident in what we're doing. They're confident in what they're doing. We offer something different. And when we had our 1-year anniversary, the largest single group of people that came up are ones that are from their venue.
That's great.
It was them and their customers that came to support us.
That's
in our
amazing.
business, which is awesome. We'll do the exact same thing.
How far is that?
About 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with the distance, I think that there's enough kind of like space in between where that can happen. Have you had anyone open up closer to you?
No, that's the closest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're technically mileage-wise the closest. Jessup and Waycross. Jessup's about 45 minutes away, but they're doing something completely different than we're doing. They're doing standard 2x10s.
Yep.
They're not part of the World Axe Throwing League. They're set up. They're a brewery that added some axe throwing next to it.
Yeah.
I've not met the gentleman. One of the guys that works for us, he is like really good at axe throwing, and he went and competed in one of his events. So it seems as though we're going to be able to develop that same relationship with them. We're not taking from each other.
Sure.
There's plenty. I mean, people want to be entertained.
Sure.
And again, we're different,
Sure.
So our customer service, I'll put it up against anybody, and not to knock theirs, because others are good too.
Sure.
Ingrain targets, projection system makes us stand out. And then you add the beer. And I'm serious when I say we have the very best Georgia craft beer selection in anywhere in the Golden Isles. And there are a lot of places to get a beer in Georgia, and in our neck of the woods of Georgia. But you have to focus. If you want to be different, right, you got to be different. You got to make it stab. So, Buck and Goat Brewery in Dallas, Georgia, you want to get some of their beer? Well, I know where you can get some.
Yeah.
It's not going to be in Savannah.
That's
but you can find some in a little place called Matadoc's Axe Throwing. Well, actually, I think we're out at the moment. But just as an example,
of course.
I mean, these are little places that, if they have good beer, we want it.
There's like this common theme that I keep on hearing in each of these projects. What is your approach to business? It seems as if there is like some driving force there that wants to be unique. Right? Like, hey, I want to have the largest craft beer selection, or, like the matted ox, like axe throwing experience. We want to have the best customer service. How do you approach business in that realm?
So I don't know that I've been asked something like that, but it goes back to what I said. I'm competitive.
Yeah.
I want to win.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean someone else can't win too, right? We're in. Again, I go to the restaurant because that's the things most people are familiar with that concept. There are restaurants all over the place. You can have winning restaurants, a bunch of winning restaurants in one town.
That's right.
Or in one area, whatever it may be. But I want to be the best.
Sure.
I want people to come into our venue, and if it's the first axe throwing venue they've ever been into, I want them to be the standard for everywhere else they go.
That's amazing.
If you've been somewhere else, then I want you to walk away going, dang, I wish that place had what Jason and Aaron are doing here. That's what I want.
Okay.
So my daughter and I were having a conversation on the way up here, talking about being famous and all those things. And she and I both agree, we never want to be famous. But having connections, doing things well that people remember you because you do them well. So Justice, the daughter that came with me to help me, she's the one that's going to be coming to Southern. She's a really good singer. And people now recognize her from her ability to sing. That's cool. She doesn't want to be famous to do it.
Sure.
But the idea that they know that if they hear her sing, they're going to hear good singing. You come to Matadoc's, you know you're going to have a good time because you're going to have a good experience in throwing axes. Whether it's customer service, whether it's the beer, whether it's whatever it may be, we're going to give you a good experience. I want it to be that way.
What is she coming to Georgia Southern for? Has she decided what?
Yeah, business management. I don't know if she's going to be an entrepreneur like us, but I'm hoping. She's talked about real estate, and I think, and that's an entrepreneur, right?
Yep.
The harder you work, the more successful you're going to be.
That's right.
And so I think that's kind of the direction that she's going at this point. But her older sister went to Georgia, so she didn't want to go follow her big sister.
Sure.
So she wanted to do something different, and So she's here in the fall, and she doesn't always like to work with me, but when I told her I was coming to Statesboro, she's like, yeah, I'll come do that.
She needs to get she needs to get
coming here.
Yeah.
She didn't mind coming here.
Yeah. Tell me about the name. Why the Matted Ox?
All right, so 4 children, 3 girls and a boy.
Okay.
My youngest, his name is Maddox, Mattox.
Okay.
So my wife and I were trying to come up with names for Matted Ox, and a bunch of things came out. His nickname, or one of his nicknames, is Mad Max, but we didn't want to be named after a movie.
Sure.
So we didn't want to go down that path. And my wife threw out Matted Ox, and I was like, Matted Ox, what the heck is that? I was like, well, that's an animal. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then, kind of getting into your business now, we started saying, okay, can you brand that?
Yeah.
Can you make it stand out and look different? And so I like to play around, having other businesses and coming up with logos and things like that. So I started kind of exploring, and I came up with something and said, I think this matches what you said in Matted Ox, and we combined the 2 of them and said, yeah, that's it. Stands
Amazing.
out. It's unique.
Yeah.
It's different. But I think when you look at like our logo, as it doesn't say Matted Ox, it says something, and it grabs your attention.
Yeah.
So logo branding mistake on Kuykendall Vending, which was the name of our first company. Kuykendall Vending, great. We're doing vending. Our last name's Kuykendall, perfect. Well, then we added distribution.
Yeah.
So now what do you do?
You're locked into that.
So now I changed it to Kuykendall Vending and Distribution.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now that's a logo change. That's an adjustment.
Sure.
That's rebranding. I put it on this trailer. It's this and that. And then we sell the vending.
Yeah.
Now I got to do it again.
Yeah.
So this time it's Matted Ox is the name of the company.
Yeah.
Obviously, axe throwing is what we do. But then when we had the mobile unit, we call it the ox cart.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a mobile version of the same thing. We're just we're building off that initial brand instead of trying to capture everything that we do in one brand.
I love
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. What's in the future? What does the future look like for you?
That's a good question. Statesboro is interesting.
Yeah.
I already had a conversation with somebody today going, there's some places that have tried to do axe throwing here or talked about doing axe throwing. So I'm very interested in having that conversation with some folks. I'm not saying we're ready to open up a second venue, but with the right partner, we might.
Sure.
I don't know Statesboro. 4 months ago, something like that, had a family come in from Statesboro. They were coming to see their son that lives in Brunswick, and it was his birthday, I think, so they were coming in town and did a whole weekend with him, and we started talking. Now, we really tried to build relationships. I'm a relationship guy, so I spent 20 years in the Air Force, but a lot of that time I spent as a criminal investigator for the Air Force. So I interviewed people for a living. You talk to people for a living, and I enjoy that aspect of it. So when people come in, I work really, really hard to learn names. So I may slip, but I'm going to do my very best to remember your name. So I just have conversations. I'm willing to sit down and have a conversation with anybody. And so I start talking to them, and they're like, we don't have axe throwing in Statesboro. That was 6 months ago. So we've been eyeing the idea of this.
Sure.
And then I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but we're talking to Georgia Southern with some stuff. And so we've got some potential opportunity to be here a lot in the fall with the ox cart.
Sure.
And we'll see what that brings from that standpoint. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been asked to provide quotes to bring our mobile unit as far as Gray, Georgia, and as far west or northwest as Statesboro, far south as Jacksonville.
How
There's a need.
There is a need.
Yeah.
So how far has the cart traveled? What's the furthest?
We've been in Rincon, which is on the north side of Savannah.
Yeah.
A month ago, 2 months ago.
Is that further than Statesboro?
No, Statesboro is the farthest now that we've gone.
Okay.
This will be the farthest event that we've actually done, traveled with it. Prior to that was Rincon. We worked a couple events in Rincon. We had a real busy week where we did 2 events in Rincon and 1 in Savannah. So the Brooks and Dunn concert was in Market Arena.
Yep.
And so in Market Arena brought us up to do
That's
like their pregame, equivalent to a pregame. So that was great exposure. I mean, you get to park right in front of Market Arena with your trailer. I think the technology side separates us a little bit, but if you haven't seen it, I know you've seen a picture of it, but when you see it in person, our semi-enclosed trailer is significantly different than what you get with mobile axe throwing. Now, are you going to get a similar experience? Can you get a good experience? Yes, we have some limitations. It's 2 people throwing at the most at the same time. You may develop a line, things like that, where others may expand to 4 or 6.
Sure.
but the experience that you get on the ox cart is completely different than what you get somewhere else. It stands out.
Yeah.
We look good, and looking good means something.
That's right.
As you know.
That's right. So for the cart, kind of like take me through a little bit of, describe it for the people that are listening right now.
Yep. So highly recommend, I got to plug Matadox.com. Go to Matadox.com, check out the pictures, right? So it is think about an 8.5 foot by 20 foot trailer.
Yeah.
Okay. That has been taken, and if you think of an enclosed trailer, look at an enclosed trailer with openings. So you're going to have an opening on the back. So you've actually got a little bar where you can set your drink down while you're getting ready to throw. You come up, you've got 2 projection targets that are going to the front of the cart.
Yep.
2 people throwing from one spot. A coach can stand up there with them so to guide them through that process. We believe in that same coaching process, whether it's the mobile or whether it's in the brick and mortar. And so you've got a maroon and gray 8.5 foot by 20 foot by 10, 12-foot trailer driving around. It catches attention.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just obvious. It stands out. And then the projection targets. So when it starts getting a little bit dark, or in this case today where it's cloudy, those projection targets are going to shine
crisp.
bright right on that wood. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that's awesome. My channel is really built out for entrepreneurs.
Yep.
If you had maybe a few tidbits of kind of like the experiences that you've gone through, what would you leave them with?
So I wouldn't have told you this, 15 years ago, even though I had aspirations and ideas and because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. What separates an entrepreneur from somebody else is willing to take the risk, right? Because there's people, I can go walk down Burrowfest tonight. What's your business idea? How many of them are not going to have it, right? Because most everybody's going to have an idea. But some people aren't willing to take the risk. Now, I don't want to say, oh, well, they don't have the financial means to do it or whatever it may be. You can start small. You can do things cheap. I started a drone business very, very on the cheap side, and you can do things on the cheap. It's more about being willing to take the risk. But your question specifically, find a good partner. I mean, really, my wife, I'm telling you, she's super smart.
Yeah.
That's helpful. She is not, I'm not going to say she's not business savvy because she is, but she didn't have the same entrepreneur side. But she provides some common sense back.
Yeah.
So I may come up with this idea, and she comes up with ideas as well. I mean, she's had some great ones, but it's because of we've pushed each other, right? So I push her to think differently, and she pushes me to think differently. And I don't think you can do things on your own.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're financing it on your own. I guarantee you're bouncing an idea off of somebody else. You're talking to somebody else about this idea. You're gathering inputs. For me, having her there and to be the grounding, the push me back to the reality piece, that's so important. I wouldn't have made it to where, and we're still new. We're a year into this business, 3 years into the other business. You don't get to that point. You don't celebrate anniversaries without somebody helping, keeping you focused. Because shiny, like you said, shiny object, I'm gone, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that I want to get out of axe throwing. I really like it. I got into axe throwing because I saw it as an opportunity.
Sure.
I really like axe throwing now. I like the business. I like what we're doing. But for me, I'm going to keep pursuing opportunities. And it may be in axe throwing and it may be other things. We'll see what the world presents itself. But I need somebody to make sure that I'm staying focused on whatever it is. And that's my wife for me. So my biggest recommendation to anybody, I don't care if it's your wife, your husband, your significant other, somebody that can talk back. It can't be your dog or your cat, right? Someone's got to be able to provide you some advice back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dropping gems. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Found out so much about, I've always in the back of my mind wondered, how the business model works, how it moves forward. And I just really appreciate your time. And welcome to Statesboro.
Adam, this has been awesome. When you reached out about doing this, I was super, super excited. So thank you for having us. I've had an awesome welcome so far, and we're looking to spend some more time up here.
Cool. Well, that's the show.